Doreen Vanderstoop, and I am a storyteller, musician, and author based in Calgary. This video is my Christmas card for all the Calgary seniors I have come to know over the years, and for those that I haven't met yet that I would love to meet. I am filled with gratitude for the wisdom and experience and stories that I have heard from the elders in our community over the years. And this Christmas card will be about 20 minutes long, and I'll sing a few Christmas favorites and tell a couple of Christmas stories that I hope you'll enjoy. And I do hope you'll sing along with the songs as well. I would like to acknowledge that this recording is being done on the traditional territories of the Indigenous signatories to Treaty 7. And that includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and the Stoney Nakoda First Nations. We also walk in the footsteps of the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. We are all treaty people. May we live with respect for this land and between all nations. I also like to acknowledge the long tradition of oral storytelling on this land by Indigenous peoples. I would also like to give a very special thanks to the Alberta Music Industry Association for their generous support for this project. Let's start with a Christmas classic, Deck the Halls. Deck the halls with boughs of holly, fa la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la. Don we now our gay apparel, fa la 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 la. Troll the ancient Yuletide carol, fa la 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 la. See the blazing Yule before us, fa la 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 la. Strike the harp and join the chorus, fa la 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 la. Follow me in merry measure, fa la 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 la. While I tell of Yuletide treasure, fa la 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 la. Fast away the old year passes, fa la 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 la. Hail the new ye lads and lasses, fa la 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 la. Sing we joyous all together, fa la 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 la. Heedless of the wind and weather, fa la 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 la. Now that song comes from a Welsh melody from the 16th century. The modern English words were written by Thomas Oliphant in 1862. Next song I'd like to do with you is one we all know. It is Silent Night. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round the Virgin Mother and Child, holy infant so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace. Silent night, holy night, shepherds quake at the sight, glory stream from heaven afar. a Savior is born. Silent night, holy night, Son of God, love's pure light, radiant beams from thy holy face, with the dawn of redeeming grace. Jesus, Lord, at thy birth, Jesus, Lord, at thy birth. That song was translated in 1859 by John Freeman Young, an American Episcopal priest. The original is the German song, Stille Nacht, Heilige Nacht. The song was composed by Franz Gruber, a schoolmaster, with lyrics by Father Joseph Moore in Austria in 1818. Now, my first story is called The Fire That Wouldn't Burn. It is an adaptation of a story written by Carolyn Sherwin Bailey, an American author and storyteller who was born in 1875. She was a prolific writer and believed that storytelling is a real force for mental and moral good. This is The Fire That Wouldn't Burn. There was great trouble in the castle at the top of the high hill, for the fire that had burned in the gigantic kitchen hearth had gone out, and no one seemed able to relight it. It had always been the most useful fire in the castle, for it cooked all the food, it warmed the corridors, and it made the kettle sing so sweetly. Every night before he went to bed, little Prince would sit in front of the fire and watch the flames dancing across the logs. Outside, it was a bitter, cold winter. Snow blanketed the ground around the castle. The fountains in the gardens looked like tall ladies in white cloaks, and long, thick icicles hung from every gargoyle on the castle. Inside, where the walls and the floors were made of stone, well, it was very cold indeed. And the castle folk would hurry from room to room, blowing on their fingers, saying something must be done, for the next day was Christmas, and the goose had to be cooked. And they were getting very tired of cold soup for supper. Everyone had a different theory about why the fire wouldn't burn. Some said it needs a special fuel to relight. Others said it's simply too cold a winter for such a big fire to keep burning. Still others conjectured that, well, the castle folk had been quarreling so over matters of state that the atmosphere in the castle was simply too cold for such a big fire to keep burning. Whatever the reason, the king himself worked the bellows, the cook piled on the logs. Still, it wouldn't light. Well, the queen wrapped the little prince in extra furs. Well, the king called the court messenger into his chambers. And he said, something must be done. You must go down into the village and see if you can bring back some coals from the villagers to relight the kitchen hearth. Maybe that will work. So the court messenger, he put on all his winter clothes and his big boots, and he took an iron lantern, much like this one. He went down into the village. And as he went, he called out, coal for the king's fire, coal for the king's fire. Well, the villagers had heard about the trouble in the castle, and they were anxious to help and perhaps capitalize on it. The first to come to the door was Gerald. Now, Gerald's father was the keeper of the king's forests. And Gerald said, certainly you may have some coals from our nice bright fire. And in exchange, you must give us a gold piece for every coal we give you. Well, the court messenger said, I don't have any with me, but I will give that bargain to the king, and he is desperate, and I'm sure that he will take it. And so he put 3 coals from Gerald's fire into his lantern, and he headed back up to the castle. But he'd only gone a few steps back to the castle before the coals burnt out and turned to cold gray ash. He had no choice but to continue on his way. And as he went, he called out, "Coal for the king's fire! Coal for the king's fire!" The next to open her door was Gilda. Gilda's father, well, he was one of the king's guards. And she said, "Certainly you may have some coals for the king's fire, and in exchange, the king must make my father the captain of the guards." The court messenger said, "Well, the king is desperate. He may well go for that bargain." And so he took 3 coals from Gilda's fire and put them in his great iron lantern. And again, he set off back to the castle. But he'd only gone a few steps again before the coals burnt out and turned to cold gray ash. And he had no choice but to continue on his way. Well, everywhere he went, people were offering coals, but they all wanted something in exchange. And every time he headed back to the castle, the coals burnt out. Well, he finally got to the poorest part of the village. Here, while the wind swept in through the chimneys and frost crept in through the cracks in the walls, he called out nonetheless in a now very cold voice, "Coal for the king's fire! Coal for the king's fire!" It was Margaret who came to the door, and she called out to the court messenger, "You must be cold through. Do come inside and sit by our fire for a moment." The court messenger went inside and sat by Margaret's fire. He noticed that there were not many coals in the fire. And he noticed that there was a pot with a small amount of stew inside it. Margaret said, "You must have some of our stew. My father is a tailor and he's out doing a fitting, but he would want me to give you some of our stew." Well, the messenger took a little bit of it, and he felt so much better for it. Margaret said, "We don't have many big coals, but you can certainly take one if the king needs it." The court messenger waited for the bargain, but none came. And so he took one of Margaret's coals and put it into his lantern. He held out little hope that the coal would keep burning. But he said goodbye to Margaret, thanked her for her generous hospitality, and headed back to the castle. Well, as he went, the little coal looked like 3, and it burned so brightly and glowed with different colors of blue, pink, and orange. It looked as if roses and bluebells were blooming beneath the snow. And the court messenger, he was warmed by that one little coal, so he was toasty warm by the time he arrived back at the castle. As soon as he got back, he went to the kitchen hearth, and he took that little coal and he touched it to the logs in the hearth, and whoosh! A great big fire burst from those logs. Well, all the castle folk were much relieved, for now the Christmas goose would be cooked the next day. And they marveled at the miracle that had created a fire from one little coal. But the court messenger, he knew that a gift given selflessly and generously is the most powerful gift of all. Let's segue from logs in a fire to the trees we get those logs from. Oh, Christmas tree. Oh, Christmas tree, thy leaves are so unchanging. Oh, Christmas tree, thy leaves are so unchanging. Not only green when summer's here, but also when 'tis cold and drear. O Christmas tree, thy leaves are so unchanging. O Christmas tree, thy candles shine so brightly. O Christmas tree, thy candles shine so brightly. From base to summit, gay and bright, there's only splendor for the sight. O Christmas tree, thy candles shine so brightly. My second story is a classic written by O. Henry, and it was first published in 1905. It's called The Gift of the Magi. $1.87, and 60 cents of it in pennies, hard won through parsimonious dealings with the baker, the butcher, and the grocer. Della counted it 3 times, but no matter how often she counted it, it would not be enough for a proper Christmas present. And the next day was Christmas. She heaved a great sigh, plopped herself down onto the shabby sofa, and looked around. A furnished flat for $12 a month. No one could coax a ring from the bell in the front hall, and the nameplate beside the bell, Mr. James Dillingham Young, was so faded that the Dillingham threatened to contract to a modest D. Of course, Mr. James Dillingham Young was known to Della as her dear husband, Jim. Like so many people of their time, while Della and Jim had fallen on hard times, $20 a month did not go very far. But they had 2 treasures between them. Della had her hair, beautiful long chestnut locks. If the Queen of Sheba had lived in the apartment across the alley, well, all her jewels would have paled by comparison to Della's beautiful long hair. For Jim, his prized possession was his pocket watch that had been handed down to him by his father and his father's father before him. If King Solomon had lived in the apartment below theirs, he would have plucked at his beard with envy at the sight of that beautiful pocket watch. Della heaved a great sigh, and she stood, and she went over to the window, and she watched a gray cat slink across the top of a gray fence underneath a gray sky. $1.87 was not enough for a proper Christmas present, and she put her hands on her head in exasperation, and then whirled about and ran to the front hall and looked in the mirror. She pulled out all the pins from her hair and let it fall to its full length, almost to her knees. And then she quickly bound it back up, pinned it, put on her threadbare hat and coat, and, well, in a rush of skirts, she hurried out the door and up the street to Madame Alonska's salon. Above the door was a sign, hair goods of all kinds. Della paused only for a moment to look at the tortoiseshell combs that she had long admired in Madame Alonska's window. And then she took the stairs 2 at a time and burst into Madame Alonska's shop, and she said, "Madame Alonska, how much for my hair?" Madame Alonska, well, she said, "Come here, my dear, have a seat." And as Della had done, she pulled all the pins from her hair and let it fall to its full length, almost to the floor. Madame Alonska looked at it appraisingly and said, $20. All that afternoon, Della scoured the shops looking for the perfect gift for Jim. And when she found it, she gasped. It was perfect. A platinum chain for his pocket watch. It was chaste and simple in design, quietly proclaiming its value. $21 they took from her for it. She hurried home, and by 7 o'clock, the coffee was made, and the frying pan was hot for the chops. Jim was never late, but it was fully 10 minutes past 7 when Della finally heard his footfalls on the stairs. She had positioned herself with the chain in hand on the edge of the table in view of the door. Jim walked in through the door and he took one look at Della and stopped dead in his tracks. He had the strangest look on his face, Della thought. It was not horror as she had expected, or anger, or disappointment. Something else. She wriggled off the table and she took one step towards him and she said, "Jim, darling, I had to sell my hair. I had to buy you a proper Christmas present. Let's wish each other a Merry Christmas and be happy." Jim, still with that strange look on his face, said, "You cut your hair?" And Della said, "Well, yes, but it's still me after all." "You cut your hair," Jim said again, and he looked around the apartment as if perhaps she had just left it lying around somewhere. And Della laughed and said, "Jim, you needn't look for it." "Huh," she said, "my hair may be gone, but my love for you is as strong as the day is long." Well, that is when Jim broke out of his trance and he took Della in his arms. And then he looked into her eyes and he said, "My dear Della, don't make a mistake about me. Neither a shampoo or a cut or anything else could ever change how much I love you. But open your present and you'll see why you had me going." Wow, the chain still clutched in her hand. Della opened the box that Jim gave her. Inside were the 2 tortoiseshell combs that she had long admired in Madame Olenska's window. "Oh, Jim," she said, they're beautiful. I'll be able to use them again someday." "Oh," she said, "I have the perfect gift for you. I looked for it all afternoon." She took his hand and she cascaded the chain into it. "Isn't it beautiful?" she said. Jim looked at the chain and then he gently touched Della's cheek and he began to laugh. He said, "My dear Della, I sold the pocket watch to buy you the combs." Now the Magi were very wise men indeed. They invented the art of Christmas gift giving. But the couple in this story, well, they are wise too, for they know that a gift given generously and selflessly, well, that truly means love. Now, before I do my last song, I'd like to thank you for your generous listening ears and for your singing voices. For those who celebrate Christmas, I wish you the merriest of Christmases. And for those who don't, I wish you the happiest of holiday seasons. And to all, well, I wish all of us a 2022 that brings us joy and much togetherness. Let's sing Jingle Bells as our final song. Dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh, o'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. Ha, ha, ha! Bells on bobtails ring, making spirits bright. What fun it is to ride and sing a sleighing song tonight. Oh, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. A day or two ago, I thought I'd take a ride, and soon Miss Fanny Bright was seated by my side. The horse was lean and lank, misfortune seemed his lot. He got into a drifted bank, and then we got upsot. Oh, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Now the ground is white, go it while you're young. Take the girls tonight and sing the sleighing song. Just get up on Tail Bay, 244 is speed. Hitch into an open sleigh and correct, you'll take the lead. Oh, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Thank you.